And I assume, Donna, you're going to lead us.
I'm going to get the stuff going. We've got lots of information for you today. First,
You wanna talk in here?
oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. First, as you know, this is our 2022 assessed valuation came in. We have to take our TIF valuation out of it. They never figured the mills on that. So it comes down to $138,707,995 is our valuation, which means each mill equals $138,708. So basically, it's a 5.8% increase, which means each mill went up $8,911. And then we also, at the same time we get our valuation, he tells us what our revenue neutral rate is. And remember, this is the same amount of money we had last year with our new valuation. So of course, our mills went down. So our revenue neutral rate is 58.488, where we've been the last 4 years at 62. So we're losing 4 point some odd mills, or $556,000, if we do not do the revenue neutral rate increase. And this is just to stay at our regular rate. So I just put 3 options here. I put the regular one, if we have no mill increase, we stay with what we have done the last 4 years, we get a gain of $556,000, and our general fund reserve balance falls to a negative 2%. If we go somewhere in the middle, I just pick 5% or 5 mills, we gain $1.2 million, and our general fund reserve balance falls to about 1%. Remember, our 15% is our policy of our budgeted expenditures. Option 3 was 12 mills, and this is all just in the general fund. Everybody else, all the other 4 funds stay the same. And this gains us $2.2 million, and it gets our reserve balance to 5%. Now, I know you're wondering how we're going to end the year. Well, so am I. But last year, I want to tell you how close we came. Because we have squeezed all the contingencies out, I was within $24,000 of going over budget, which you can't do. So that is way too close for my comfort. I was really nervous there at year end, but we made it. But this year, I don't see a big savings anywhere with all the price increases and stuff like that. So we could potentially be at the very edge of our budget again, which brings to, on the sheets you see how, if that budget played out, how low it'd be, and that's where I get this low of 5%, is sticking with our 2022 budget and our ending balance we think might happen. And these are the actual dollars. I just kind of put it in a different format so you can see what we levied for 2022 was $8,112,000. And we get our increase, and that's how we come up with option 1, would be our taxes of $8,669,000. And then option 2 would be 9.3, and option 3 would be the $10,334,000. Just to kind of give you an idea of what each one of those meals, or that amount of meals, brings in. Now, if you have any questions, stop me, because I'm just going through. And then this is the sheet that I give you each year to kind of show you where we end up. This is if we stayed the same. This is what everybody's at right now. And you can see the total mill levies is the 62.5, which is where we are, and how we would end up in each of the funds. Everything looks good with the same mill. And then these mills have been increased for the 2023 valuation. So that's why everybody else looks real good. It's just the general fund that is having issues. And I wanted to kind of give you where we are now at the end of May, which is the most accurate end of the month. I don't have June's yet, and where we were last year. So we're just pretty close to what we did last year. We're at 47, 48% of revenue coming in. Our expenses are like 38, 39%. So it's just kind of almost a mirror image of where we were last year at this time. This is the sheet I always kind of give you so you can see what we've done in past years on the budget and where we end with our balances. This one I've done the 5.8 increase, so you can kind of see the ad valorem increase and how much comes in and where we end up with the negative 2%. And then I go into, this is just where I wanted to show you how close I came to the budget. This is the audited sheet that came just last week, and it shows I was $24,000, that close in the budget. And then I show this one, which is the 5 mil increase, and you can see where we end up at $280,000 as our reserve. And then the 12 is, we end at $1.2 million. Where we should be about 15% is 3.5 million is where the 15% is. Now, we can go under for a year. Then in the policy, it says the finance director has to come up with a plan to get us out of it within a year and back where we're supposed to be. So it's not unheard of that we go underneath. We just don't like to.
Is that a city policy, or is it a previous commission adopted policy, or is it a state policy?
It's a city policy. It's the best practices
Sure.
of the Government Finance Officers Association.
Okay.
And this is something that I want to mention too today is, this is what Standard & Poor's looks at when they rate our bonds.
Yeah.
And this is where we could get in a world of hurt if we go down in our bond ratings, because we have a lot of bond issues coming up. And to go from an AA negative to a B or an A, it would cost us more money in the long run.
How does our policy compare to state requirements? Doesn't state statute have a different number?
They really don't.
They don't? I thought our number was higher than theirs. I thought they had a 10.
I don't think they have, I don't remember what their number is, because I don't go by it, I guess. I've always had the 15. Everywhere I've been, it's about 15, because we go with the GFOA. And when you're doing the budget for the state, they don't really like you to have a balance. They want you to kind of, so it's hard to put in there.
It is of note, in all of these options Donna is showing you, we have included that $800,000 of that ARPA money. That is included in here already too. So it's, that is something just to,
That is the
Noteworthy.
600,000 for the new positions in fire, and the 200,000 to do that at Cottonwood Cottonwood.
yeah, Cottonwood Crossing,
That's what that 800 is for. Now, we do have the rest of the $1.4 million that we were going to use, 600-some thousand, to pay off some of the projects we have, so the bonding wouldn't be quite so high.
And
That's
we're
where-
just going to use it to pay cash instead of bonding it. Some of the bigger infrastructure projects. Echoey.
So then, can you go over again if the new positions for fire EMS and every position we eliminate or don't fund, then that money comes out of that 800, and then that just means there's a bigger hole to fill. Can you describe that?
I'm not,
Well, okay, if we only, the request is for 6 positions, and if we only give 2 or 3, then how does that affect that 800,000 from the ARPA funds? And then how does that affect the overall?
you would add another 200,000 if you went half, you could say, to the bottom line.
Okay,
Because it's about 4 meals for that 600,000. So that'd
Yep.
be 2 meals.
so we just have to find it somewhere else. Okay,
But they're paid for this year. And if you ramp it up in 2 years, then it's all going to hit.
Yeah, remember, this is the last of the ARPA money. It's gone after
We're not getting this
This
next
was
year.
our second.
So we have to fund the 2 we're paying for with the ARPA, or the 3 we're paying for with the ARPA funds next year, and also the new 3 that we're doing. So we'd have, so I don't know if we'd,
So assuming everything stayed the same then, and then the second year and we don't have the ARPA funds, how many mills would it take to increase to fund all 6 positions?
it's about 4 meals, a little over 4 meals for the $600,000.
then can you come up with, so this, even with the 12 mil increase, 5% ending balance, what has been the average, let's say over the last 3 or 4 years? I mean, I can't pull that up, and my file up here doesn't open, and let me access that right now. But do you remember about what our ending, has it been 8, 10, 12% over the last 3 or 4 years, our ending balance?
We've been above, in the general fund, you mean?
Yes, in the general fund.
We've been above, we've been at 4 million some,
Okay, so
it's 17.
then if we, even with a 12 mil increase and we end up at 5%, is that enough of a red flag for the bond council?
Yeah.
And for the bond folks for that they're going to say immediately, okay, then this is too much of a red flag and your costs are going to go up for the interest.
I can't say what they'll do, but they will make us, I know they will question it, and they will question me really hard about it, and they'll make sure I have a plan to get back up within a year or so, as our policy states. So we're going to have a plan in the next couple of years to come back up, whatever we do, or it will hurt us. I don't know if it'll hurt the first year, but it will be a red flag on their, they'll pick on that now, from now on. And I do have I had a chart from Baker Tilly that told how much of a cost increase it would be, and I can get that for you if we go down.
Well, I think that's a valuable piece of information we need to know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The next slide I have is just to kind of show you what each meal would cost a typical family with a home, say it's a $100,000 home, and you go to 12 meals, it's $11.50 a month increase for them, or $138 a year. Go all the way to $300,000 home, it's $414 increase per year. Just so you kind of know what when you're thinking what it's going to do. And then we did put a slide in here from, kind of to show last year. We don't have the information yet of where everybody's going up, of course, this year. But this is where the cities all kind of land and their valuation of a meal. Everybody's meal's different. And that's just added information for you. And then I have some other slides I want to get up here.
On your city comparison chart, that is cities of similar size, is that where that
It's
chart
in the
came
area.
from?
Yeah, some of both. Some of them are similar-sized cities, and Winfield, although it's not close to us, they're a little bit smaller in population, but they also have an airport, and they're a full-service city, like they do fire and EMS and police. We try to pick cities that were similar in size, but also the ones that are near us in the area, like oftentimes, people say, well, what's Heston doing, or what's Halston doing, or those kind of things. Is that correct, ma'am?
Yes, I would agree with that. In the past, there's been certain ways that we've compared ourselves to other municipalities, and what you're seeing in front of you is the same list that we utilized last year, so there was a little bit of a year-over-year comparison if needed. But yeah, we're looking at those cities that have those similar sets of services, similar community makeup, and then also sizing. It's hard a little bit to find apples to apples, but we did our best.
It's just some information so you can speak to citizens when they talk about we're so much higher than somebody else or something. They have to know the little bit differences in the valuation and the meals. The next couple slides we have, Rebecca put these together for us as well. It kind of shows the departments with increases and how much they're increasing. This is just for the,
We didn't get those?
It's in the
next
budget
The
narrative.
next one?
budget narrative
Yeah.
All right.
on the second sheet. And each of those positions and where they landed.
Right, and just a little bit of information for you. The larger pie graph that you have is your current staffing levels that you'll see in the budget. And then that proposed addition just breaks it out over departments, so you're not just seeing that one single nut $774,000 number. You get to see how it breaks out over the different city offices.
Remember, so on the small pie chart, we're, let's use an example here, that where it says market analyst,
Right.
Remember, that's the other half of the CVB person. We're only doing half in CVB instead of all in CVB. Recall that? So that's what that one is.
And the others all have pieces in utilities because they do work for them as well. So they're all kind of spread out. That's why they're not, we're not going to pay someone $19,000 a year anymore, seems like. So. The next one is a chart that Rebecca put together showing the revenue we've received.
This is just to help answer some of the questions that we sometimes get about where do we have we leveraged our funding? Have we gone out and looked for grants? So this just gives you a little bit of history going back to 2017 in whether they were grants or intergovernmental transfers or COVID funding. So you can kind of see where those numbers are. A lot of things that are marked as intergovernmental include FEMA, FAA money,
FAA.
I apologize. Still my first cup of coffee. Or other types of funding that we utilize for a lot of infrastructure projects that Suzanne's usually overseeing for some of those streets projects. So if it came from a governmental source and was not a competitive grant, it would be in that orange line item. The blue would be a normal traditional grant that we think about from an organization that's outside of a normal fund transfer. And then those 2 years we have of yellow would be our COVID funding. So you can see how we've been utilizing those outside sources to leverage our regular budget.
Why was there such an increase in '21 in the intergovernmental funds, do you think?
That is for the taxiway work.
Oh, yeah.
This is something we continually look at, and it's not just one person. It's like the whole organization. For example, Fire EMS has their own team there in-house that, and I'm sorry, Chief, what do they call themselves? I can't recall the.
We call them the money sprinters.
The money.
Actually, it's our financial team.
Yeah. Because they're going to be aware of special things, and some of that grant money for fire, for example, we've utilized, like we've been able to obtain new vehicles, part of our COVID money, I don't know if you recall this, not the money that came directly to us, but one of the original allocations from the county, we were able to purchase that new ambulance with that. And so that was something we had been saving for to purchase through our MER, through their municipal equipment reserve, but we were able to utilize that funding instead. So we've got some significant savings. And remember, another example would be, we got the $3 million something from KDOT to pay for Wheat Ridge, Paddington, the lighting down there,
Cost share program.
Yeah, cost share program. Like we were talking about this morning, the C-CLIP funds that we've received that help take care of, Main Street, K-15. All of those kind of things would be in this intergovernmental kind of thing. Federal fund exchange. When we get this federal dollars, you recall how we do that? We exchange those. We usually get 90 cents on the dollar for that, so.
Yeah.
Did you pull that one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the fund exchange goes into that intergovernmental transfer
Yeah.
line. And then the grants is more specific, so that would be like the police vests from the Department of Justice and some of those types of things. So kind of differences is trying to break it out to show.
Like for PD, for example, like I said, we've had bulletproof vests, we've been able to obtain body cameras. So, we've tried to do equipment and those kind of things.
Yeah, we were able to purchase CPR devices, transport ventilators, radios. We were able to purchase some radios, some body armor for our folks, the Department of Homeland Security grant. Self-contained breathing apparatuses. We were able to outfit our entire fleet with new SCBAs a couple of years ago through the assistance of firefighters. So we're leveraging whatever grants we can.
We are not shy about asking. We're not afraid to be told no. You don't get what you don't ask for, right? So we
That's right.
try our very best. We have people who have that specialized skill set, though, so it's not just like, a lot of organizations say, well, we need a grant writer or a grant manager. I'm like, well, that's not really how it works. I mean, you have somebody who's got that expertise, but you need the expertise specific to the industry or the piece of, the device or those kind of things. But it's always a team effort.
Did you want the clicker?
No, if you'll just drive for me, that would be fine.
I will.
And then this was some things you had asked us to put together. You had said, we want some history, we want some talking points. How does this fit in? We've talked over the years about if it doesn't fit in with your strategic plan, then why are we doing it? You know, so what we wanted to do was give you some of those talking points so that when you have questions from citizens, you can say, that, you know, this is why we are doing what we're doing. And it is strategic. It's not just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. It's very thought out and strategic. So as you know, for the past 5 years, the commission believed it was very important politically to keep the city's portion of the mill levy flat and just hold the line. And although we knew that wasn't sustainable for the longer term, it was made possible through some strategic choices and changes, recommendations from staff that you all helped us vet, and then you had to, you know, just like everything, even if our resources were unlimited, you're still going to have to make choices and prioritize certain projects or items that are of higher need. And so the budget remained balanced through different cost-saving measures, like we talked about, some of those grant opportunities, and through the use of additional technology. So instead of hiring staff, we've been able to upgrade some of our technology that made us more streamlined and able to hold off on those kinds of things. So examples, we talked about debt. So one of the things you recall that we heard in the 2020 community survey, 85 or 86% of the respondents said, pay down additional debt before you incur more. And so we've tried to do that, like I said, very strategically. You know, for an example of that one is, you know, the Sand Creek Station golf course bonds are going to pay off soon. And we will utilize it's about $600,000 a year to pay those bonds. Those are paid from the general fund. And we will utilize that same amount of money to pay the city's portion of the library project. So we won't be incurring additional debt. We will just be utilizing the same funds. And then we'll reallocate a portion of those same funds, probably back to other projects, but also back to Sand Creek Station, because remember, because the bonds are paid off, those are 20 years bonds. So the course is now 20 years old, and it needs some upgrades and some maintenance things. And we've been able to do some of those things in-house. Chris Toohey and his staff have worked really hard. A lot of Suzanne's staff has gone out and helped do those kind of things. But, you know, it's time to upgrade the clubhouse. It's time to, you know, add some amenities outside so that we remain that first-in-class destination. Because remember, that attracts a lot of people and a lot of revenue to our community. Even whether they stay the night here, then they're buying food, they're buying fuel. Sometimes they're bringing their caddies or their families or whomever. Also just, it's a great showpiece for our community, and we want it to be that way. We want to maintain that. So again, we talked a little bit about the ARPA funds. We were fortunate to receive 2 rounds of that funding and about $1.4 million each. But again, we have that we've already been awarded the second round.
It's in the bank.
It's in the bank, yep. So you guys just have to help us allocate that. Like I said, we're proposing putting $800,000 of that into the general fund to help offset some of those costs. And remember, one of the allowable uses for that money is fire and EMS personnel and salaries. That is one of the allowable approved uses, and so that's why we were proposing the addition of those staff through the use of that money for this year. Again, we refinanced a lot of our existing debt. We were able to save $2.6 million. One of the pandemic's silver linings was the bond and interest rates went way down. And so we had several bond issues. We were able to call our defease and refinance and get a much lower interest rate, but we did not extend the terms of any of those. So they're still going to pay off in the same timely manner, but we were able to save $2.6 million. So that's really helped also the general fund bottom line, because remember, that's where a lot of that, the bond and interest fund hits that same, you know, we allocate a certain amount of mills from general fund to the bond and interest fund to make those payments. So that really, really helped us a lot the last few years. And then another thing we talked about was we wanted to pursue public-private partnerships, such as the library, and doing the fundraising with their group. And the grant that Suzanne is about to help them apply for through USDA, that will also help that private side of that funding going forward as well. We were able to utilize, we also talked about, oh, sorry, I'm going to go to the next slide, thank you. So talk about personnel cost savings. Except we always know we are a service-based industry. That is what we do. We are here to serve, whether that is picking up trash or, you know, providing public works and park facilities or amenities like the pool. So our people are our number one asset, and we want to compensate them well and take care of them well, make sure they have good insurance and benefits. But it's also our most expensive item of work. As you noticed in Rebecca's charts, I mean, the biggest portion of those pies is always personnel costs, and regardless of the division it applies to. So you all had graciously authorized us for the last several years to do an early retirement buyout program. That helps in a couple of ways. We have people who are getting close or maybe are thinking about it, but they're not sure, maybe they're eligible. But what we did was by buying them out, we basically froze the positions that were non-essential. So if it was an administrative type position, those kinds of things, if it was not, we did not do this with first responders. So if it was a non-essential position, we froze it for either 3 to 6 months before we hired. So we had some cost savings there. Also, these people who are exiting the organization as they retire, they're towards the top of the pay scale. And when we refill the positions, usually they're coming in from somebody either from another division or brand new. And so they're coming in at a much lower rate. We were very fortunate that the last several years, Donna and our HR director, Ms. Deb, have gone to bat and gone to war to keep our insurance costs as low as possible. Some organizations and entities were seeing 15 or 20% increases year over year. Because we are self-insured, we had, I think it was less than 5% increase the last
And that was the
several years in
highest
a
we've
row.
been. It's usually been 3.
Yeah, so
Last year was 5.
we've done very well compared to other agencies. And we still have really great benefits. We're not giving up, you know, quality versus the cost, if that makes sense for our employees. Again, new hires came in at that lower salary. And then many of those positions have been left vacant for years. Like we talked about the management analyst. It was something we had before. Maybe you guys probably all remember Danny Bronson, who is now at City of Derby. He was our last management analyst. And so he's been gone. I mean, he was at the county for 4 or 5 years-ish. So we've not filled it and just made do and got by, if that made sense. But we're at a point where we are in growth mode, and we are squeezed to the max right now in every part of the organization as far as staffing goes, and we really are finding we need that additional support. And a management analyst supports the entire organization. They're kind of a utility infielder. They will work on every project. They will help with long-term planning, strategic planning, help with grant writing. They will help with, you know, whether fire EMS needs, maybe help with their accreditation process. I mean, that's kind of a management analyst is kind of a nationally known title for somebody who's kind of, you either come up as an intern or this is like your first job as you're entering the organization. So that way you learn, typically these people are being groomed to be either a department head or a city manager in their future. And you may recall you guys authorized us to hire an intern this year that was part-time, then we were going to merge them to the full-time position. And that's what so this intern that we have now is going to become the management analyst. So.
Donna, do you know, just for a talking point, are we still at around 210 employees?
We're 208.
208?
Yes. And that's
Fact-
been steady for 20
Quite a while.
plus
We
years.
rose a couple. We're at 206, you know, something like
Yeah,
that.
okay, thanks.
We have about 16 part-time seasonal people in the summer.
And that just depends on how many we can get. You know, sometimes we can get them all.
207.5, and everybody would have been wondering if that
Who
was
the half
them.
was?
Yeah, who the heck is, yeah. So also one of the things that was helpful during the pandemic, but is also not sustainable, is we basically didn't get to travel or go to many trainings, or they became virtual, or sometimes they even became virtual and were offered at a much lower cost because you weren't there in person. So that was helpful to us, but again, we have people who have certifications they have to maintain by law. So we need to keep sending those people to those essential kinds of trainings. But that was another example of a cost-saving measure we took over the last couple of years. Talked a little bit earlier about technology. We've been investing in several different pieces of software, and a couple of examples I wanted to give to you, which also benefit. They help us, like I said, they have helped us avoid the need to add staff as quickly. It makes us more efficient, can keep us out in the field longer instead of having to come back to the office as much or to the stations. One example of that was we talked last year about Encode, which is our finance software, but it does a little bit of everything. It touches every part of the organization. It does utility billing. With that upgrade, we are now able to offer more services to our customers as well. They can do online bill payment. They had, Donnie, I don't know exactly all the stuff it does.
We're going to be able to do e-statements pretty soon. And they can see, now we have a little graph on the bills that we send out so they can see where they were this time last year. It's just kind of upgraded everything, and it's more customer friendly. We've got a IVR now, which they can call, and we can't touch their credit cards anymore. We can't get them over the phone because we record calls. So all that, those regulations we have to abide by, this helps us. They can just call this little lady on the phone, computer lady, and she takes their credit card. Or they can do it all online if they want. So there's lots of cost savings and they're getting, service orders can be done on the iPad. So when water department goes out, they can fix it right there on the iPad. They can get new ones while they're out there. They don't have to come back and write it all down, put it in. Also code enforcement work, we're getting up on that for our building permits. They can take stuff out in the field and do it right there. And we're gonna get where we can, those contractors and stuff can pay online and just do it all online instead of having to come up here or have to bring their card in where we have to run it for them and stuff like that. So it's all coming. It's all been kind of dumped on us at once, and we're sorting it out now and getting it all out there where it needs to
So,
be.
so will people be able to hook up online?
We're looking at that.
Okay.
The problem with that, and we fight this all the time, is the red flag laws that we also have to abide by. We have to know that person coming in is that person they say who
Yeah.
they say they are. So we have to see their ID and get their social from them. So I'm trying to figure out some way that we can verify either online or something
Yeah.
that is their social and that is their driver's license
Yeah,
without privacy issues
The
too.
realtors tell me that we're the only,
That's what I keep hearing.
yeah,
But we do have the red flags. We can't, until we can get over that hurdle.
yeah.
So we are contacting like Lawrence and stuff, see how they're doing it. Some, they just don't check anymore. It's like, but you have to, because
You're supposed
you're
to,
held
yeah.
responsible.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another example is, I think Chief may have talked about this last time we had a meeting about the e-ticketing system. And that has helped streamline not only our officers' work because it's all right there in their vehicle. It goes directly to the court system. So that has saved us a lot of time and energy and effort. It helps with, speed up report writing and other kinds of things.
Yeah, it just streamlines, not only for our department, but for the law department, for the court systems. It just streamlines everybody's jobs and makes it more efficient, so it's cost effective.
And same for field services, public works. I mean, we've been working to upgrade to those automated meter readers so that they don't have to go and pull as many, by hand, and it helps that, they can just drive by or walk by.
Faster process.
Yep, a lot faster. So that has helped us quite a bit. And so then we wanted to talk a little bit about, like I said earlier, if it's not in your strategic plan, then we need to know why are we doing it. So just as a reminder, this was your first goal, which was to increase the tax base and grow the community. And you wanted to update and implement a revised incentive policy to increase resources and create jobs. I believe the Community Development Commission is working on that. That way we have something in hand that when a developer comes, they already know what the city commission is willing to support as they make an ask if they need industrial revenue bonds or those types of things. And I think, as I said, Community Development Commission, that was formed last year, they have really been focusing on retail and commercial growth, expansion, as well as continuing our industrial efforts. And as you know, we have sold and got under contract a lot of industrial property in the last 6 months, and so we're super excited. And once the supply chain allows them to get their, get their building materials here, it'll be really nice to see all that start to go up, and it'll go up quick, fast, and in a hurry. So that'll be nice. And then we wanted to make sure we were targeting underused or dormant commercial and industrial spaces for redevelopment. And I know the Community Development Commission, and in partnership with Harvey County Economic Development, has been making basically, a list of places that are available or that should be available. For example, if we've got a building on Main Street that is being used for storage, it's no longer a storefront. Well, that's not generating retail for the community opportunities, and or it's not generating revenue for the city through sales tax and those kind of things. So Rebecca and Zach and the Community Development Commission have been working to target some of those. I'm using downtown as an example, but they're all over the place. For example, the True Value building that was empty out by the Outlet Mall for a number of years, that kind of thing. So on the item of new growth and in your plan, we just want to remind the community, we are definitely in growth mode right now, and we're in the early stages of it. And every community ebbs and flows. You're stable for a while and then you grow, and you always hope you don't decline. Usually that happens if a manufacturer has a major layoff or something like that. Usually there's a specific reason for it. So the community really has not been in a major growth cycle in at least 10 to 20 years. And so sometimes it's hard to remember 10 or 20 years ago that we've been able to hold the line because we were doing okay. We were just kind of in status quo stasis mode. So now that we're in growth mode, it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. We have to be prepared for that growth to come, and we have to be ahead of it. So for example, it takes, I don't know, Chief, how long does it take to train an officer? It's the academy and field training and
About 8 to 10 months to get one singular officer up and running and being full
Yeah, so it's like we have to be forward-thinking and forward-looking and try, again, like chiefs, the need for additional firefighters and those kind of things. We talked about the need for a future fire station, those. So we're trying to be strategic about that as we go forward and make sure that we have that in the plan and we can, as Commissioner Stinnett so eloquently put it one day, we feather those kinds of things in and make them fit and prioritize them as the need becomes greater for a specific service or those kinds of things. And as you know, like I mentioned, we've been working with multiple industrial, commercial, and residential developers on current projects, purchase of buildings, expansion. Some of those projects are still under non-disclosure, however, many of them are public at this point. And so we wanted to kind of share those with you just as a reminder and for the public that might be interested. So starting with industrial projects, these are the ones that we have been working on just in the last 6 to 12 months that have come to fruition this year, and either the property is already under contract or the development agreement is already in place. As a reminder, GAF is a material manufacturer, and they had purchased the Tyndall property, the 230 acres. Is that about 230 acres? That's been vacant for a number of years, so we're grateful to see that one coming forward. And then Murdoch Properties, Mr. Rabelli, he has purchased several properties in the KLP as well as some other private properties, and is going to be doing storage and lay down and warehousing, those kind of things. You may be familiar as you drive north or south on I-35 near Park City, that line of gray buildings on the side of the road. It's about 3.3 million square feet. That is his property, and that is what he will be doing similarly here in the KLP soon. As soon as his building materials show up, he is anxiously chomping at the bit to get started. CD Customs in the industrial park is expanding. Midwest Transformers at the airport is expanding. They've expanded at their current location, plus they purchased additional property on the other side of the road for future expansion as well, for more laydown storage. Ben Franklin Crafts at the airport industrial park, they were a recent purchase. Full Vision has been talking to us. You remember at your last meeting, you accepted a petition from them for annexation. They're going to be adding on square footage and employees. And then Bunting Magnetics recently finished one expansion, and now they're starting a second expansion. And again, this is not everything, but I just wanted to give you some highlights and some talking points that the community is asking you, like what's the status of these projects. Commercial, so obviously the Occidental property, the roads are in now, the lights are in and working, and I believe water and sewer is done. They've been working on mass grading, and I can't speak for Occidental. I know Zach's been in communication with them. I don't know where they are, but I know that they have several tenants ready to go as soon as all that mass grading is completed for the site. So that's exciting news. And then, of course, the latest word on the street, of course, was the announcement of Starbucks going in on Walmart's property in that same area of town. We have talked about the bed tax challenges we're having, and we've been looking for some creative solutions to that. I have been talking to my colleagues in other communities, and I have I'm actually a little surprised that more communities aren't having that problem, but I've had quite a few responses saying they have tackled it in different manners. For example, one community passed a city ordinance a number of years ago that for the 28th day, you can still stay as long as you want to stay, but on the 28th day, the hotels have to check everybody out of the room and then check them back in as a new guest. So that way, because remember, if you pass the 28th day, they no longer pay the bed tax. And so I have been talking to legislative research at the state because they're telling me they're not sure that's legal, but there are lots of cities who are doing it. So I'm just running some traps for you, trying to find some other options. But of course, the longer term solution is we just need more rooms available for long-term stays and for hotel stays. So we're working on that. I know Zach has been hustling, working with his hotel partners as well as the Community Development Commission, because we've got potential locations in 3 or 4 areas of town where this would be perfect to locate. Maybe more than one additional hotel would be beneficial. And then, of course, you've got Red Coach redevelopment opportunity at First Street and 135. It's been for sale for quite some time. I think there's been a couple of really interested parties that have been talking about how do we figure out, can we, come together and revamp that hotel, even if it doesn't become a hotel, can it be something else? And then, of course, recently, another example would be where the old the Montana Steakhouse that became Kansas or whatever, it's been purchased and is being redeveloped into a new restaurant, so we're excited to see that going. So, yeah, that's been nice. Like I said, they've been strategically targeting those empty spaces. So moving on, your second goal in your strategic...
I might make a comment.
Please do.
After you say, this day's been coming for a long time. I mean, in any business, when you get ready to go into growth mode, you're going to have a need for capital, and a city only has so many ways that they can get capital. And I, you know, as much as it pains me to have to increase the mill levy to raise that capital, I think the important thing is knowing why you're doing it. And using it for that purpose. And then making the commitment, you know, at some point in time, the valuation's going to go up so that you don't need those mills. So we need to make sure that we're committed, that we don't just let that become part of what we spend and have to figure out ways to spend it.
Absolutely. And one of the
There's a
challenges to your
balance
point,
there.
sir, yeah, again, that's the chicken and egg piece of this, is that all of these properties, whether they're industrial, commercial, their reinvestment, I mean, that means their valuation of that building is going to probably increase and go up over the next year. And remember, commercial and industrial properties are taxed at 25% set by state statute. So those are the higher revenue generating ones. So all of these buildings that are coming online in the industrial park, this is all, it's coming, but remember, in Kansas, we tax a year in arrears. So even if it builds this year, we won't see that revenue for a year to 2 years as it comes forward. And then just the general rule of thumb is whatever the valuation is for that property, the city gets about a third of that, and then a little more than a third goes to the school district, and the remainder is divided up among townships and the county and those kinds of things. So, you know, just a rule of thumb, if you ever think about that, you just glance at something, we get about a third of that revenue annually for any particular piece of property in general.
I think the other comment, just to piggyback on what you two are saying, if you look at census numbers, you say, okay, but our population isn't as high, but we are growing in square footage, not necessarily numbers of people. You don't always do them all at the same time, so square footage may grow, then people numbers will come up. I mean, you kind of go back and forth with that.
Well, but if you also look at the housing stock as it's increasing now, not 100% of that new housing stock is going to be people just relocating that are already here in Newton. You're
Correct.
going to have some new bodies coming to town, or people coming to town to fill that new housing stock.
Well, and these jobs that are being created by these industrial and commercial expansions, I mean, some of these proposed projects are 200-300 jobs at a time, and we don't want to miss out on that. We want those people to live here. We've done a really good job of growing our local businesses and expanding and offering new jobs, but there's not really places for them to live, and so that becomes difficult. So to your point, that feeds in with your next goal, actually, which was to strategically attack those housing stock issues. And we are pleased to say that feel like we've been pretty successful. We have actively recruited several single-family developers, multifamily developers. We are working on some senior-specific housing projects for those 55 and older, so maybe that frees up some existing housing stock if they move to a patio home. We wanted to be sure we were investing in improvements and redeveloping the core areas of town, and you guys have tackled that through programs like the new weatherization program and the sidewalk repair partnership program. All of those things are redevelopment focused. And so on the next slide I have for you, here's some examples. So single family, this is again new development that's been upcoming or has coming right now in the process. We've recently talked about Summer Crossing, which is at Old Main and Wheat Ridge. They have 24 new available single family home lots. Spring Lake at Old Main and Southwest 24 has 8. Some of them are not new, but they were not available before, or they needed the infrastructure to open them up. Autumn Glen at 24th in South Kansas, they have 29 new lots that are about to be available. Sand Creek Station, which is, this is near Casey Drive, that gateway entrance where you pull in at Sand Creek, they've got 12 new single-family lots available. And then, of course, recently, you all approved a zoning request change for Fox Ridge Golf Course. There is a developer who's going to be working on both multi and single-family, probably a combination thereof, and that'll be a great redevelopment of that currently vacant piece of property, good infill development as well. And then we talked a little bit earlier about multifamily, Cottonwood Crossing. They've been talking about expanding, and that is proposed to be 100+ housing units. And some of those will be 2 and 3 bedrooms, single family. It could be single story, maybe duplex stories, type setups. So we'll see how that falls out. It kind of depends. They've been applying for some grant money from the state as well. And then, of course, Harvest Point, which is Mennonite Housing. That was a great partnership. The city was able to sell that property that we owned to Mennonite Housing, and they are building some senior-specific homes, 55 and older. They're going to be really nice amenity for the community, and that's something we knew we had a shortage of with senior housing, not assisted living, but just senior housing, low maintenance, like they will take care of all the yard work. It's like all inclusive, you know, all one level, universal build. So you'll be able to stay in your home longer as you'd like to retire in the community. Again, we talked about Fox Ridge, and then, excuse me, a recent one also you all heard was the Enclave, which is near Freddy's, Southwest 14th Street, and that will be 14 housing units. I think they're going to be duplexes is what he's proposing. So we're working on that now. So that's, I mean, that's super exciting, knowing we've had this concern and problem for a while, and it takes time. You got to start pushing the flywheel. It takes time to get all this stuff together and ready. So it's exciting to see that happening for our community. And then your third goal was to tackle some amenities and quality of life issues. You wanted to utilize the new Community Development Commission, choose Newton, to pursue some of those public-private partnership opportunities. And we talked a little bit about that, and we worked on branding, the community pride, the new, gateway signage you're seeing, and the new wayfinding signage with the flag on it. It's a very nice, clean, fresh look for the community, and it's becoming a very nice unified brand, because it's not just the city's brand, quote unquote, the city's organization, but that is the Newton flag. It's this community's brand. And so you're seeing it other places, and it makes it look very nice and inclusive across the whole community. You had talked about implementing the plans for the redevelopment of the library. Okay, we talked about that this morning. It's going well. Fundraising is going well. We're getting, we're working through plans and specs now, and working on actual layouts and those kinds of things for the building. Again, the ball fields, those are in progress right now. The pool, you guys all had fun opening that last year, and so it was really neat to see it open for the whole season this year.
It was good to see Ryan talk about that the usage is up 40%. And that's a pretty significant increase.
Yeah, it's great. It turned out beautiful. I think everybody is very happy with it. And then we had on here to pursue some opportunities for citywide internet service. You may recall, I believe it was USDA, there were several grant opportunities that came up through some of those ARPA funds for broadband. And we weren't sure at the time, because they were just kind of floating out there, if it was going to be like the city would apply for the money. Some of it is, typically it's been large organizations. I know Ms. Rebecca's looked into this one a lot. So this may be one that we want to maybe either tweak the wording or maybe check it off our list as we go forward and redo this strategic plan, because it's really become more at a statewide level push. Is that correct, ma'am?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we're still doing a little bit of research and seeing where this kind of falls down, but it's definitely moved above us. A lot of people are looking at the same issue and looking to get some really good data to see what our actual connectivity looks like and what the actual infrastructure looks like.
There's a whole working group at the state right now. It's a subset, I believe, of Department of Commerce.
Correct.
Exactly. I think you've worked with them a little bit too. So because again, it's not just pulling fiber through our community, it's making sure the fiber gets pulled across the community and out into the rural areas as well, and interconnects through the other places where the fiber already exists. So we're going to keep an eye on that one, but I did want to mention it because it was something that we thought at first it would be us directly pursuing, but it's become much larger than us. So moving on, you wanted to maintain and improve infrastructure. We talked a little bit about that. You guys have done a lot of, Suzanne's folks have done a lot of work, whether that's roads or water and sewer lines, enhancing those mains or doing lining projects like we're talking about at an upcoming meeting to, make those lines last longer.
I will say, that's what's laying on your desk up there. We redid it. We found a couple that were duplicates and some changes in amounts, so these are the freshest ones.
And that is the CIP. Okay, just want to mention it. You said you really wanted to focus on hiring and training quality and qualified staff. We wanted to adequately fund our building maintenance for all city facilities and pursue partnerships with Harvey County for our shared facilities. An example of that would be like the airport buildings. And remember, you all created the airport CIP a while back, and we've been checking those items off the list, like new roofs for some of the hangars that the tenants are in out there, those kinds of things. And then you wanted to make sure we also maintain high-quality, competitive construction standards, keeping them up to date. And we're working on that right now. You may recall we've mentioned to you several times the zoning code has been completely overhauled and is about to be presented to the Planning Commission, I believe, at their next meeting. And then that would come to you to be recodified. And we just wanted to make sure we were benchmarking ourselves with not only our partners in the area, make sure we kind of had more congruent standards, but also that we were being developer friendly while protecting the city and our infrastructure and our residents. And the next thing is the cost of this growth. I think Commissioner Cry said it well, and a couple of us have alluded to it. This is growing pains, which doesn't mean it's not painful. We know that we have to do some of these things to prepare for this growth to continue to take place and to move forward, because we don't want it to, we've worked too hard to get it going. We don't want it to fall off and stop again. We don't want it to come to a stop. One of those costs that we're concerned about, I know Rebecca showed it in one of her charts, I believe, earlier, is the cost of fuel. Of course, everybody is feeling that same pain. We are not alone in that boat, but it is very expensive for us, whether it's aviation fuel or diesel or, regular gasoline. Again, we've all seen price increases in commodities. An example, Suzanne was pricing out projects the other day, and PVC has increased between 25, sorry, I've got a typo in there.
25 to
25 to 75%, even just in the last few months. So it's getting harder to do the same work. What we have done is, instead of, as these price increases have happened, even slowly over time, it happens annually, but not to these huge inflated numbers we've seen the last year or two. But the way we've worked around it was that we just did less with the same amount of money and the same amount of projects. So instead of overlaying 10 streets, maybe we did 5. But again, that has been a strategy, and it's deferred maintenance. But at some point, that's, again, not sustainable, and we're going to have to put our money where our mouth is and invest in those things that benefit the whole community. So that's kind of where we had for you to, and we'd be happy to go back and revisit any of this or talk it out. You had said you really wanted some talking points and some recap for the community to be able to hold on to.
So I have a couple of thoughts. One is, if you go back to the residential sheet, there are potentially, and I just did the math in my head, but between 300 and 500 new housing units on the board right now, if you throw in that Fox Ridge, and of course, that's not a known quantity just yet. But, so there's that. The other thing, does anybody here know what the county talked about this week as far as a potential mill increase? And I should have looked myself without.
Someone told me 5.
I know they were talking about it, but I missed whatever it was. I'm sorry, I missed what the final number.
5
know-
sounds familiar, or right, yeah.
I know the last one I heard was 1, but okay, 5.
That's what I.
So, I like to look at the big picture context as far as for a citizen. For instance, if we went up 12 mills here, and let's just say a lot of the people that may be on fixed incomes, we'll look at the $100,000 house, that's $138 a year increase for that 12 mills. Well, then you throw in, let's just say it's 5 mills for the county, and that may be another, we'll just call it $50. So
And their evaluation's going to be different too.
yeah, I
Their
know,
footprint's so pretty.
but let's just say it goes up $200 for that person on a fixed income. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing, and this is so true because it is really a catch-22 here. We are in growth mode, and we can't just hunker down and say, oh, no. But the bond interest is one thing that really concerns me. That cost right there, even of the 12 mil increase, and we end up at a 5%, that still concerns me about what that potential cost is. Do you know a time frame when you could get that number? I mean, is that something we could do on a break, that you could come up with that?
I can find it.
I want to know that number, the potential cost for us, as we piece this together, because really, we want the best for all of our citizens, from the ones who are on fixed incomes to those that are more affluent. There's some exciting things going on here, and we just need to be very strategic and long-term, 5-10 years in the future, about how we deal with this.
And remember, we've talked, I don't mean to be picking on fire and EMS, but, the needing to add additional officers. Well, in the future, we're going to need to add additional staff everywhere across the city organization, whether that is going to be public works crews, we're going to need additional officers, police officers. It's going to take additional help in most areas of our organization at some point in the future. So we want to try and spread that out and I don't know what, phase it in perhaps as that need arises to the best of our ability, so it's not just one big hit all at once.
Yeah, because we want to slowly experience the growth in the valuations, and as those additional dollars, then we can increase incrementally as that comes.
I do have Jack's email pulled up to me. He worked for Baker Tilly. He says A-rated bonds on average priced about 10 basis points higher than AA. And we're at AA minus now, so we would go down to an A. So it'd be 10 basis points higher.
Okay.
And the county is 1 mil,
County?
texted Chip.
One? Okay. So,
Well, we're investing in a revenue stream. We just need to understand that. And there's going to be people that say, why do we want to grow? I like things the way they are. And it's like, things never stay the way they are.
well, and the other thing is, I think the horse has already left the barn on that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah,
the growth
no
is in progress as we speak.
It is.
Well, even if you just stayed the same, costs increase. You just cannot.
Well, yeah.
Commodities are what's
Yeah.
really eating our lunch this
Amen.
year.
Well, just
Yeah.
Commodities.
inflation's probably
Yeah.
4 or 5 mils.
Yeah, cost of
So,
commodities is
yeah.
really eating our lunch this year.
I mean, we're doing our job. We had a significant increase in valuation last year, and I think, 28% of that was new. So, it's.
We're headed the right direction.
We're right on our strategic plan. We just need capital to get there.
When you get your magic ball out, we see a dire numbers in front of us because we see the bond and interest increasing down the road because of the improvements that we're doing and everything. But we haven't actually been able to forecast on that paper, the revenue from the Tyndall property because it hasn't happened yet. So we know that when that happens, that's going to have a positive impact on '24. It's not going to affect '23.
Right.
When we get these new properties built and those property taxes come in, or the sales tax revenue when people are having lunch here or living here because of the new housing starts and everything. So it's one of those, we're going to have to bridge that from now to then moment, but it's on the horizon.
It is. One thing we have looked at is whether a sales tax for public safety, a 1% sales tax for public safety.
Yeah.
Because the people who don't pay are the big users of fire and police, who don't have property. They're either going through and they need the police or something like that.
Yeah.
And why not have them help pay for that? And some of the people who need the help of EMS most don't own their property. And because we know nonprofits are not taxed. So they could be helping to pay for that.
Right.
Because they use the EMS the most, the fire EMS the most, and they could be helping pay for that. Not all on just that 65% of property owners that are having to pay for everybody. So we could kind of share that. So that's an idea. We did look at, we gain about 3 million is what 1% would bring in a year's time, just in Newton.
Yeah.
But as we do grow and as those revenues do increase off of commercial property taxes and everything, we also have a responsibility to look where we can cut mill levies as well. So,
Absolutely. That's why we're looking at diversifying the revenue streams, to your point.
Right.
Like, does that, not just grants and those kind of programs that we feel like we do a really good job of taking advantage of, and we're going to continue to do that. But, look for those partnership opportunities, or like I said, whether it's sales tax versus property tax, or, the best organization, as you all know, is a three-legged stool. You don't want to be balancing on two legs. You need that sturdiness of having diversified revenue.
Well, I believe in Newton, and I think things are headed in the right direction. We just got to match the dollars with what we need to do to prepare for our increase in revenue that's getting ready to come. So, like you said, growing pains.
Doesn't mean it's not painful.
That doesn't mean they're not painful.
Now, if we approach the increase in the sales tax, whether it's 0.5% or 1%, is that something that us five can decide, or do we have to put that for a vote to the people?
I think it has to go to a vote.
I believe it requires, yeah, it's a referendum.
So we'd have to do a lot of selling the idea and educating.
Yeah.
Which, once they saw that everybody shares in it, even people who don't live here, I think that would help the property owners to understand, yeah, maybe this is a good idea. We don't want to have to brunt the whole cost of all this,
And obviously,
Just an idea.
Obviously, the pushback is going to be, well, we're already,
At 8.5, it'd be
at
9.5.
8.5, then you put us at the top of the scale of all the other cities and the whole,
why can't that other percent go away? I mean, when has it been relooked at?
What percent?
We're at 8.5, Wichita's at 7.5, right? So where's the extra coming from?
We have two 1%.
Right. So are they still valid?
Well, the one is, goes half to the general fund and half to that's what funds, the Economic Development Fund.
But that's what I'm saying, as we continue to grow and diversify the revenue streams, at some point, maybe that can go away or be replaced with the emergency.
Right now, it has it has bonds tied to it, the Sand Creek and then the ABI.
That's
Building
building.
B.
Building
Building
B. said that out loud.
Victory.
Sorry.
Anymore.
Victory.
That's what came to mind first. But that's tied to that for a while, but that's something you could look at. I mean, it's, any ideas?
Is there
In other words, what you're saying is, okay, if we increase a half or 1%, but it's going to have a sunset clause where it's going to go away on X date.
Yeah,
what you're
because
saying?
we can't continue to just take. At some point, we have to give back and relinquish mills back to the community if we've attained goals or we've gotten our
And we only get
our
a portion of
percentages
that,
back.
remember?
Yeah, remember that's countywide too, so.
Right, but what we can't do is we can't just go, well, that's there, and then it's there forever.
Yeah.
Well, that's
We
the
have to
hard
really-
part. I mean, we're going through these growing pains, and the county, you know, they're going to get their share of the increase in valuation, and you know, they don't share in everything that we do to make that happen. So that's a discussion maybe we can have with them sometime. You know, let's maybe do countywide planning, but the city's a component. There's got to be, you know, with the increase, there's got to be things that we could probably work together better on than we have in the past.
And to your point, sir, I know several of you talked to me about this, but Mayor made an official ask to me to make an ask to the school board, which we have done, to set up a joint work session. Because
Yes.
obviously with this new community growth, especially the housing units, that's going to mean more students for the district. And we know that they have needed to grow and do some work to their facilities anyway. So I think it's a great opportunity to do some longer term strategic visioning with what are their needs so that we know we are helping with that and or not stepping on each other's toes too, because we want it to be in a community this size and as fast as it's going to grow once all of this starts to come together. It's going to happen very quickly, and we want to be prepared for that and have a good unified plan. So we are still working to find a date, probably sometime in the fall, because I think right now the district's gearing up to go back to school. So as soon as I have a date for that, I will let you guys know. I know Mr. Van Rankin was going to check with the board president and see.
Have they announced when their bond vote is going to be on Santa Fe School?
I have not.
anybody-
I don't
heard
think they've even
anything.
approved it to go to a bond vote
Yeah, I
yet.
think they're still just talking
Okay.
about the
Yeah,
idea
okay.
of bonding it.
I don't think so. I don't know. I want to be quoted on that, but that's my understanding, so.
Well, I quote you on lots of stuff.
Well, this is where I'm at, I think, on it. I'm not a fan of a 12 mil increase, I don't think. Looking at the numbers, it doesn't appear like a lot, but I'm considering what the county will do. I'm considering what the school board will do. And just being mindful of that we're better when we're working together versus apart. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. I think as well that I am a fan of pushing back a little bit on our own structure and our own entity and saying we need to make some concessions as well, because there's going to be concessions in every household if we raise it 12 mils. Maybe not as much if we go 5 mils, but there will be if we go higher than that. And I think that it's good for us if we make some concessions as well in that. So I don't know, that would be on all of you in the room to help work through that. I think there's a few things that I think we see as absolute necessities, and I think the fire department is one of those things. This where the funds are going there and what's happening with the growth there. I think that one thing I've thought of a lot is at the industrial park with growth there, which is where we see a lot of it, or is an industrial growth, that there's, I think, an increase. I would only imagine there would be an increase in just calls and injuries and things like that could need to be addressed there. So I don't think that I'm on board with 12 mil increase, but I am on board with something. I think we have to do something, but I also think too, we need to make some concessions on our own and work through some of this, and it's going to be tough, but I think we're going to have to do it. That's kind of where I've landed on it. I've just wrote down a few notes. I was wondering if there's in the future, and I don't know if anybody can answer this question entirely, but just what I was thinking is what large projects do we have on the horizon that we keep talking about? We don't want to Rich, you made a point just to say that we can't keep taking, we need to be giving back at some point as well. And I think about just, we've talked a lot about bonds expiring and then we add new, and it's like there's never a break in there. It's just we continue to do that. And that's concerning to me. And I'm not going to pick on any one project or anything, but that's concerning in a sense that now we're here and we're short on mills or we're short on income. And instead of looking at saying, how can we keep from stretching ourselves too thin, we're just talking about adding more projects and more projects and more projects. Some of those I understand are necessities. I don't know that all of them are, in my opinion. I think, to me, I always look at it as a balance, and I'm kind of a visual person, so I've pictured in my head a kind of like a spider chart. And I just see all these different areas, and I just wonder where we can work through some of that. There's an increase in taxes versus a decrease in spending. And I think those two things need to be balanced with each other if we're going to go forward. That's where I'm at, so, in all of this.
Mayor, to your point, at your seat, Donna mentioned that there's these 2 pages. The second page is actually
Right.
your CIP.
Projects,
And
yeah.
that's the actual bonding schedule. So that tells you all of the projects. And we try, because they're rarely, whether it's supply issues or labor issues or timing of project, rarely do they actually all hit in the year we think they're going to hit in. And then we reallocate those to different years as we go forward. But on the far right, if you look at that page, you see the red. It says mill levy amount. Anything that's got the red in it, that is how much of each current mill it would cost to do this project. Anything that doesn't have that number by it is either being paid out of operations budget, out of the sales tax revenues, out of grant funding. Some of the stuff that's on here is like, it'll be bonded as special, so like the property owner will pay it. We're just kind of the pass-through.
Okay.
So anything that doesn't have that red by it is actually not being paid by the general fund. If that is helpful to take a peek at,
That is,
just
yeah.
for, and I mean, I know it's a lot to take in this moment, don't feel like I have to, but just, some examples of those kind of things, like, we may not get to, so if you look to the 21, 22,
Yeah.
those last 3 in yellow where it says the enclave, we were just talking about that. That is, although the city will bid out that, it won't be bonded. It'll be paid through, they'll spread specials, I believe, or he was actually even talking about paying cash for it. He had not decided.
So, but just on that, so this is just my point, and thank you for that, because I didn't understand what the red meant, but just in my point to say that next year, and this is only if everything goes through, right? I mean, I understand that may not, but it's 3.49 mils. 2024 is 5.93. 2025 is 6.05. 2026 may be so far out, we don't know, but if only it could stay at 0.322, right? I mean, it's just so, I'm just thinking that even, I mean, if you look at a 12 mil increase this year, and then you have 3.49 in mills next year, just for the projects, I mean, that's a 15.49 mil increase
each
over
year-
just a year.
Each year, some
rolls
falls
off.
off.
Right.
The payments fall off. So
Right,
you
but we
have
haven't
3
made
to
a
4
habit,
million
though.
a year
but
falling off.
We haven't made a habit, though, of when something falls off of not reusing that somewhere else.
Right, to your point,
But you
like,
have-
we're talking about like Sand Creek Station, it pays off, but then we're going to utilize those funds
For
for
the
the library
library, but
bonds,
that
right?
way
So
we're
it'll still be
saying-
bonded,
I didn't want to be the one to bring that up, but yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm just, I mean, that's a good example, and we
Right.
talked about
I
that
mean, so I'm
earlier.
just, most of it, we haven't made a habit. And I don't think most people have, and that's fair. I don't know that it's any right or wrong way to do it, but most people, I mean, we're not finding the relief and passing that on once it's paid off. We're just reallocating those funds to a new project or another project.
Because projects, I mean, things fall apart. We have to keep
I know.
moving. You have to
I
have
think
things.
if you
Your-
look at the
I
items.
understand that,
For
but
your quality of life, people start complaining about that. The roads are horrible. Look at the potholes. I mean, you just have to, it's an ongoing thing. You
right,
have to-
and I know that some of those things have to be done. I think the point that's being missed is that we have to be willing to find some other ways to pay for it too, instead of just putting it all back on the citizens and just saying,
And that's where long-term
have a
planning
tax
comes
increase.
in.
It's
and
where what?
That's where long-term planning comes in because, big projects.
But where's those plans? The long-term plan right now seems to be that mill increase. That's not a plan to me.
Right, but we can't pivot today for tomorrow as far as those mill things that, most of these are infrastructure things.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aside from the 2 large ones that are on that sheet, everything is below, almost everything is below one mil.
But they add up though.
Right, they do add up, but
I'm not looking at,
What
I'm
I'm
not
saying-
concerned with something that's .081 mils. I'm concerned with the total number of 3.49 for next year.
Can I ask a question? So on the proposed additions, some ARPA funds are going to take care of it, just the fire and EMS, is that correct?
The ones into the general fund,
Yes.
the $600 pays for those new positions for fire for 1 year,
$600,000.
600,000.
Right, yeah, and so then there's, what's left, 800 and some of the
If you'll
1.4?
see it on here, it's in 2023, it says ARPA funds, 639,000. It's going to some of the paving that
Okay.
needs done out at the KLP,
So
Okay.
we don't have to bond
so we
it.
don't have to bond
Okay,
that.
so
And that's
then,
a usable use of those funds.
so with these proposed additions, then those have to be built in then to 2024's budget, because there won't be the ARPA funds to cover that. They get
Correct.
built into that budget. So then, do you have any idea, it's probably hard to tell, but with, not knowing what valuations will be next year, and just, we're not going to see probably the increase in revenue with all of the things that are going on in development until probably 2024 after. So is there any idea, what do you have as far as what we might be looking at a year from now? Because as we consider mills now, and then we consider building these positions into the budget, we need to have, I'm just thinking, okay, what will we possibly be looking at next year? Because these 12 mills really aren't going to cover
Right.
that. They're just bringing us up to where we need to be. I'm thankful that when we talk about giving back to the community, we did give back in a way that we did not, we did not apply any tax increases. Since 17, I looked back, and our last tax increase was in 2017 for 3.043 mils. And that's the last time that we did anything. And so now we are hit with the decision, and we're going to be facing some music. And I'm wondering if we'll be facing additional music maybe next year when we look at that, because I certainly support these extra positions, but just wondering what that's going to make 2024 look like. And I know it's probably a little bit hard to tell, because when you look at the increase, the amount of this increase, then you're looking at, golly, I'm not quite sure, 700,000 maybe? 600 for the fire and EMS, and 670, roughly 700 and some thousand that will be built into the budget for 2024.
Right. Plus the increases that you'll have coming.
Right, right. So, and that's no ARPA funds.
Right.
4 mills.
About
4 mills, at least.
Yeah. And to your point, I didn't explain this very well. On that same sheet, if you'll go back to that with me, that red where we talked about this would be the mill levy amount. And like I said, some of that, so the ones that are in light yellow, those are the ones that are the special assessment projects. So we will, like I said, we will bid those out, contract them, but then they will be spread as specials, so those will be paid by the property owners. The peach orangish color there is possible KDOT funding to assist. We would have to apply as those programs become available. These, we just know have qualified for those types of program funds in the
Yeah,
past.
there's no guarantee.
Yeah, but that's our plan, is to apply for KDOT matching funds for it. And then,
It is our habit to look for other sources of revenue. I mean, we try
Always.
really hard to come up with other sources. We have especially had to the last 4 years because we did not have an increase. So we worked our tail off, not me, Suzanne and the fire department, everybody has worked hard to come up with other sources of revenue. It's not like we haven't done that.
And
I
the
think we
ARPA
brought a lot of
funds-
money in.
The ARPA funds for this hillside paving, that can be used in another year, even though they are in 2022, it can?
yes, they have to
We
be
have till
expended.
25.
Yeah, by
Oh, okay,
either after.
okay, all right,
That's
That's
why
how
they're
I-
just sitting there right now grabbing some interest, I'm hoping, so.
yeah.
And,
Right.
and actually, once you bond something, we don't pay for a year. So like the 2.183 mills, that's 2021, 2022, the first payment will be in 2023.
Yeah.
So everything
Typically.
So I tried to
lags
put
a
down here the bond 23 or 24, depends on when that gets finished, when we're
Yeah.
going to do it. Because we do it in 1 year, and we have to pay the first payment in the next year.
And typically, we try to bond multiple projects together because the more projects you have together, the better interest rates you get.
The 2021, 2022 is pretty set. Those are all,
They're going.
they're going.
Right, right.
The
So-
other,
So the big question is what are we going to have in an increase in valuation in the meantime that helps fund
Come
those without, with new tax money rather than,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we had a crystal ball here.
Yeah, it really would, and the hard
Could
part
say.
is when that goes on, like Kelly said, it lags a year too.
It does.
And some
Doc-
of these projects have been pushed a couple, 3 years. It's not like we just put them there and that's what happens.
Yeah.
They keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed.
Yeah.
Some of them, like the new stuff going in on the KLP, if a business comes out there, then you have to do it. So it is just growing pains, but we have pushed and pushed back.
So Donna, to our bond and interest fund page here. So I'm trying to get at that 10 basis points, even if we go up to 12 mils, even if we cut some things, but if we still end up at a 4 or 5 or 6% ending balance, and if we do get hit and it costs us 10 basis points, that's on the interest portion. So if you look at our bond and interest payments here, 22 is 5.502 million, and then 23 is 5.585, and then 24 is 6.705 thousand. Okay, so of that portion, I'm trying to get at the number of what that 10 basis points would increase our costs for the interest portion.
We're locked in on our interest now, and it only,
So then that wouldn't start probably until, what would you say?
Till the new,
25?
new bonds.
Maybe
Till-
25 is when we'd
it'd
actually
take a while
start.
for us to fall with Standard & Poor's,
Yeah.
So, and then it would take a while for the projects to be bonded and be
Right.
finished.
So
When those rating calls would come right before we bonded, hopefully we'd be back up. Or
so
never
maybe
go
that's,
down.
maybe that's not something that we should be
It's something to be concerned about.
quite as concerned about.
It'll be a 2 or 3 year fall.
Yeah.
If we go. I mean, it's not going to happen tomorrow.
Meanwhile,
But we do have a rating call coming up in the next month or so because of the PBC bonds. And so I'm going to have to tell them how good we're doing and I will sell it. And we will be fine. But I will tell you, the bond and interest in March, it was 2 and 3% for the bonds. Now it's 4 and 5. That's like an $800,000 increase in
Yeah, I was
interest.
going to say, it was going to, between when we got an estimate for the bonds that we're actually about to bond now on behalf of the PBC, it was $850,000 more dollars,
For interest,
interest only.
over the 20-year period, of course. And hopefully maybe it'll come down, we can refund.
And that's,
Like we
that's with
did,
our good bond rating, you know what I mean? And remember, the PBC pays those, but still,
Yeah.
it's, and we knew interest rates was about.
And that's going to get
up.
worse before it gets better.
Right.
Yep, yep, so, yep.
But we're really happy we did the 2 refunding bonds the last couple of years. That really helped us. So we're sitting in a good spot for that. But I don't want to spend it again.
Well, what is your pleasure, ladies and gentlemen? Would you like to take a break and let your brain kind of think for a little bit and we can come back, or?
I have one more question.
Yeah, of course.
Where are we at with some of the, and I'm only asking this because somebody said it this week. I think I know where we are. I want to make sure I'm right, though. But where are we at with some of the development projects? So we have like GAF. Has that progressed anymore? Is it still in limbo with Tyndall and that whole relationship? And are they still doing their due diligence and research? So nothing's moved forward
They're doing
since
their
we knew
due
last?
diligence. Chris and I actually met with them on a call yesterday or day before. There's several pieces that they're going through. We're trying to help with that.
Yeah, okay, and then, and I'm asking because I was talking to someone this week, and it's somebody in a different elected office here in the community, not in the city, and they just said that, and I said, I presented the fact, yes, that housing, right, and kids, so it was somebody from the school district, I need to say that to make it easier to explain, but I said, I don't think you guys are considering that there's a lot of kids that could be coming, right? And they go, well, we've heard that too many times before.
Sure,
That it
yeah.
could happen, that it could happen,
I
that it could
understand.
happen. So I was trying to understand, I thought that, I mean, I think that we are, but like, so the housing stuff, so Summer Crossing, and I'm having a hard time picturing where even some of this is, just thinking, but I have to
That's why we
usually.
try to give you the
I keep my
intersections in
phone here if
general.
anybody's watching, so I can look it up on the map and go, oh yeah, Old Main and Wheat Ridge or something, but, it's like Summer Crossing, is that,
North of Spring Lake, north of the.
okay, so
Spring
they're
Lake.
back, that's the one they're working on the roads and stuff right now, right? Okay,
Right.
I've seen
You
that.
guys just did that, you approved those the other day, the
So will that, is that something, Suzanne, that like they'll start building as soon as they can get their trucks in there on the roads, or what's?
Yeah, I mean,
Or is-
that's,
Are they doing specs, or are they doing selling the lot and
we,
building the
we don't,
house?
we
or-
don't
know.
know that.
Combination.
We
Okay.
build the infrastructure and then they
Or is
pull
it the
permits
infrastructure
when
sits
they're
there
ready to
for
go.
a year?
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Until they're ready. No permits have been pulled though for building yet that you know of, or do you know? That's okay if you don't.
I'd
know. I
have
was
to,
just-
I'd have
just
to
curious.
look on that one. In the weekly report, Kelly puts out every time we have a building a new house permit that's pulled, and we haven't
I
had
try
one
to
for
give
a
you a
couple
running
weeks.
total. It's been a couple weeks since we had one, but we were at, oh my gosh. The biggie was when, a while back when Harvest Point pulled all their
Yeah.
permits for that. I mean, that was nice for our books for this year.
And we just finished the streets out there, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I drive down to Anderson and saw them working. So then Old Main, right, those are already there. They're just waiting to be built on. Autumn Glen.
Autumn Glen, those can't happen yet because they're working on the design for the streets.
Okay.
And then you will see that before it goes to bid. We bring plans and specs to you on the streets for Autumn Glen.
Yeah, and then
That's the only
Sand Creek
thing left.
Station is ready.
Yes.
The infrastructure is there, correct?
They're
Okay.
ready. They are ready.
Yeah.
But you've anticipated Autumn Glen on the 2023 bonding already, right?
Autumn Glen is, I believe that we will go out to bid with it this year. And it's on the 2022, 2023, it's going to hit the 2023 bonding because
Right.
it's going to be done and ready to go for bonding by 2023. Whether Donna chooses to include it in the
Right.
2022 or if we wait till the end of 2023.
Right. What I was demonstrating.
Oh, yes,
is-
yeah.
It's already been discussed and
Yeah,
and forecasted for us, and it's
And that's
not.
what we're trying very hard to make sure that we are closing the loop, so to speak,
Right.
sir, and we're not just.
Yeah.
But again, this chicken and egg thing about growth mode is some of these industries are going to come in, and while we anticipate, like, we've known for years we need to pave Hillside, right? We've known it was coming. But what else is going to be needed out there? Is there going to be rail needs? Are there going to, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's things that, depending on the industry that comes in, that we may still have to partner on, then those are not going to be on here. I mean, anticipated to the best of our ability, but, so.
And that ARPA funds didn't have to go to that one project.
No,
I
it
just
could-
stuck it in there so we'd see that helped our ending balance a little bit. So it could go to any of those projects that come to fruition first.
Yeah, and I don't think it's anybody's fault in the room today, or commissioners as well, but I've heard from a lot of citizens, and haven't been here my whole life, so I can't speak to it, but I've just heard that in the past, so many citizens have been told it's coming, and then it doesn't come, and they've put in infrastructure stuff, and they've done this, and they've done that, the city, meaning the city, us, and then it's not done. Like, it's just difficult for me to go back and go, well, we need to increase your taxes because this is what's coming, and it's like, people here have heard that for a long time, and then there's projects that never come. And,
It's frustrating for us, too.
oh, I know, right?
We've
And it
spent years
is, and so
working on a
it's just like,
project
I just wanted to know for myself,
Yeah.
like, when you see the roads going, like, I enjoyed seeing the roads going in at the Summer Crossing one. Like, that's progress, that's good, it's something's happening. I hope that we start to
People can
see
see
then
it.
some earth-moving equipment there, digging holes in the ground for basements, but,
That's the other thing to keep in mind. The contractors that
Oh,
do
yeah.
the basements,
Yeah.
they're way backed
Yeah.
up because they can't get enough people to work.
And then it
And
rains.
so everything
Then
has
it
been
rains.
impacted at every level.
I don't know how many people asked me if I wanted a summer job this year working construction.
Yeah,
And I just
imagine.
laughed. No, I enjoyed my afternoon naps too much to do that, so.
Well, I did, Rebecca found the sales tax comparisons that we were talking about a minute ago, just on your screen. You can kind of see where the surrounding communities stand on their sales tax, just for your information.
And I would just add on that chart as you're looking at it, it says it's not including the special districts. So it was like mentioned, like Wichita and some of those others, they have special CIDs or TIFs, or even they might have a BID, depending on how they do their downtown. So in places, it gets broken down by zip code. If you have a business, you have to pay out from your zip code. So in certain places, they'll be bringing in substantially more in sales tax, but this is their base rate that's citywide. And again, these are the same communities that were benchmarked in those other taxing
Almost all those new places in Wichita have TIFs.
Yes, or star bonds, which again is the same thing, or sales tax or property tax goes to pay the
CIDs or
bond off.
something.
CIDs, community improvement districts, are the same way. So think about a good one, most people know, that whole big east side development where Cabela's is and Cavender's and all of that. I think that is 2.5% addition to this when you shop there. And so it's one of those things, I don't know if people look at their receipt, you know, and see, oh, wow, this was a higher sales tax, yeah.
I
Yeah,
can
we
send it to you,
We
Kathy.
can send it to you as well,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll send it to you.
We can get you prints.
Yeah, but anyway, so it's just something to think about. That's what that note means, not including those special districts. And we could do the same thing. For example, we have a CID policy in place. We've only used it once since I've been here, maybe once ever. And it was for the Holiday Inn a couple years ago. Remember, they sold and they had to rebrand and remodel. So there's an additional sales tax out there
It's
that they
2%.
collect, 2%, and then that comes, they pay it in, and then it comes back to them to help pay off the cost of the project over time. Or we could do it at the outlet mall, for example, if they wanted to put in a CID, and we could put, it's whatever that particular piece of property is. It doesn't necessarily have to be citywide, to your point. So that's a tool we have in our toolbox, should a property owner wish to utilize it. A lot of people do downtown Main Street that way. They make a whole CID that covers Main Street, and you use that to pay for upgrades, facades, sidewalks, downtown streetscape projects.
I don't know why I've enjoyed going to other communities and buying something and then looking at the receipt to see how much they charge in sales tax, just
Do
to
you?
know. Yeah, I don't know why,
I
but
guess I never look,
I've always
I
thought
want
compared just to where we are, it's interesting to go. And some places are like 9 or 9.5 or something, and
Yeah.
you look around and you go,
Next time you go to Legends in Kansas City, look
What
at
are you
your
getting?
receipt.
I probably don't want to, but I will.
Yeah.
I've never looked at the one for Cabela's area, though. I didn't realize that was
Oh,
higher
yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah. That whole area, and actually, there's several like that. Water Walk downtown, a lot of
Well,
downtown.
the ballpark's the
Wichitas.
big one.
Yep, yep.
Greenwich,
Yep.
Greenwich, back in there, that whole development, that's
Yep.
the same thing.
Maze, New Market Square, 21st and Maze. I mean, it's its own, it's got an additional tax on it as well that pays for it, so. You know, I don't think it's something we all think about every day. You're like me, and I'm a creature of habit. I buy the same things every time at the same store as I'm driving home, or you know what, it's like, I get in my groove and I don't think about it as much, so. Well, if you guys are so amenable, you want to take maybe a 15-minute break or so, and then you can come back and ask more questions or decide what you want to do next, or if you just decide you want to be done and give it some food for thought, we do have an option, because we are running up on the time when we have to let the county clerk know, you know, just the revenue neutral rate on the 20th, by the 20th at the
And
latest.
the next meeting, Tuesday, would be the latest time we can do
Yeah,
that.
so if you should so desire, what we could do as well is we could schedule a work session prior to your next meeting, if you guys are kind of on overload right now and you want to think it through. But we're going to have a decision made that night then, so you could have a work session. I mean, it's completely up to you, it's your pleasure, whatever you want to do.
And I just want to make sure that I understand this, because I did last year. Because we are exceeding the revenue neutral rate by staying with just, I mean,
Yeah, even if we kept the
Even
mill
if
levy
it's
the same as it is now, we
You-
would be exceeding.
so
I
then
just
you.
need to know by how much. It makes you say by how many meals are you
Right.
exceeding your rate?
Yeah, if we didn't do a mill increase, it would be at the current mills.
Yes, we would
I mean,
still be
not that we
exceeding the
would-
revenue neutral rate because of the increase in
By
value.
4
So
meals.
you have a hearing for that purpose. I mean, just for that purpose.
Yes, we have 2
Yes.
hearings, and they can be the same
Yes.
night, but they'll be in the last
Because
meeting
that's
in
like
August.
4 mills right there.
Yeah.
So you have a hearing just for that purpose.
Yes.
And then, so if you
Even if we did
increase.
nothing.
That's to reclaim the 4 mills that you lost.
Yeah, and that is, you know, explaining that.
It's crazy that we have to do that.
Yes, it
citizens.
is.
That's the
Yeah.
stupidest.
Well, and the
Yeah.
thing is, we
I've
still
ever
have to
done
do
in
all
my
the normal stuff we do anyway, which is the public hearings and the notifications and things like that.
Yeah, they didn't
It's
take
a
anything
mess.
away, they just
And the
added.
12 mills is on top of that 4.
Yeah, we'd be maintaining, we'd be keeping the
Right.
mill levy the same, and then
Yes.
increasing however many
But it's-
mills, and that's what we have.
It's
when
not
it gets-
adding those 4 meals, it's just
It's keeping them.
keeping them.
Otherwise,
keeping
you
it.
lose
Yeah,
them.
we
You
don't
don't add
wanna
them, you just lose
say we're
them.
going
Right.
up 16 by any
No,
means.
no, absolutely not. But I know when it gets reported, there's some explaining on that.
Right.
Because the way it gets reported. I mean, I understand that, but when you explain it, because last year it wasn't, what, 1 or 2 mills? What, that
can't
was.
Yeah, it didn't fall that far.
It
It's
didn't
like
fall that
60 or
far.
something, and was 2 something to
And
stay the
so,
same.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
just want to be clear on that, because
Yeah.
that
Great
requires
question.
some explaining.
Right. You're exactly.
I even still have to stop and go, wait, hold on, because it's still pretty new. I mean, this is only the second year we've done it, so.
Yeah.
And there are, just for your awareness, they are making some additional changes, or at least it's been proposed at the legislature about property tax rates and who gets to determine, and whether the Board of Tax Appeals is going to continue to do that in each community, or whether that authority will be given directly to the appraiser as one person. And, you know, I mean, it's interesting. The state is likes to tell us what to do and how to do it. So, but that's okay. We will play the hand we're dealt, as always. So, all right, would you guys like to take a break and just give it some thought, and then we'll come back and you can tell us what you'd like to do, okay?
Well, we have food in there, so you have to eat it.
Yeah, you have to at least get a snack.
Well, can we just maybe talk real quick and just, if,
Sure.
do we need to discuss more today, or do we want to leave, take time to think about it, and schedule a work session for Tuesday night before the meeting? I mean, how much more can we accomplish today?
I know, that's why I said you may just need to digest some of this. I know it's a lot to take in.
Yeah, what's everybody's thoughts?
I did want to ask PD, you're not on the proposed additions, and I went back to the book. Did you, from our other workshops that we had in May, were you not needing, or was that already built into your, for extra
Yeah,
positions?
it was the 2 hospital resource officers, I think
Yeah.
was
We
what
put
you're
that
talking
in this
about.
year's budget.
Yeah, it was in this year's budget,
Okay,
so.
but-
Correct, sir.
But for additional,
For this year, for 23,
23,
I'm not asking for any additional personnel. Right now, I'm just trying to get the folks
yeah,
trained and get them moving.
Right.
I may come to you in another couple of years, once all this
okay,
progress is coming. But right now, I'm gonna hold steady for where I am, just get my folks trained and on the streets. Keep the ones I have happy, so they don't go off to other places.
right,
That's the big challenge.
right, okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure.
Is there any other information you need from any of us?
I think we need to know what we're giving up. Let's say we give you the directive of, we don't want to go up for more than 7 mills, and we still want to have at least a 5% reserve, and we want the new fire department employees. What do we have to give up? I know that may be an impossible ask, but
Right.
I think we need to know that to justify the 12 mil increase if we end up going up 12 mils.
You know,
You think?
I agree with that.
I don't have an appetite for 12, I can tell you that right now. It's tough because even in our own household budgets, you know, you want to have a savings account, and you want to have that savings account have a certain amount of money. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and when that doesn't happen, you start cutting things out and everything. So you've given us 3 options.
And there's
And,
every
and,
point.
and
there's other options if
and
you
one
want
of
a
the-
different
and-
option.
And one of those options is, it is the budget and the savings account gets hit. You know, and you've given us option where the savings account got hit really hard, one where it didn't get hit as hard, and another where it starts to regrow itself and everything. I guess my ask is, you know, is that as tight, have we tightened the belt everywhere that we possibly can?
Well, and to your point, sir, that's actually been the directive of even your direct predecessors in the commission, was cut out all your contingencies, and we've done that every single year. And that's, I think, to Donna's point earlier when she said we ended up with $24,000 left at the end of this year. I mean, it used to be a couple $100,000 minimum.
That's pretty close.
And that is,
Yeah.
and Commissioner Cry especially and Commissioner Kane have helped us over the last couple of years, on those things. And like Suzanne always goes through and says, okay, what project can be pushed back? What can we put off? What can we defer? What can we bid out differently or cheaper? Remember how we rebid the ball field project, how many umpteen different ways with the old bad alternates and those kinds of things. So I feel like we've done a really good job of that over
We
the
do
last
too.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And
I
we
just
do-
don't know, and I just don't know how sustainable it is, because
Right.
at some point, we will have to do less with less. Does
And
that
that's-
make sense?
And
We'll
that's,
just do less
so
with
I
less.
teed that up as a question because this
Absolutely.
commission heard from every department, and we heard from all the staff and everything when you were preparing this budget in the last 2 meetings, special meetings that we had. So with the long-term planning and everything, and knowing in the out years that we have to continue to provide the services to our community and everything, I think we are going to have a mill increase. I have no appetite for 12, but I think we can come together and come up with something that continues to keep the services that our community wants and deserves and prepares us for the future. Because if we put our heads in the sand and say no to a mill levy increase this cycle, we're just pushing that down the road, and that's not good business. That's not good long-range planning and everything.
I can also come up with another 7 mills and get an example, just like I did on the others, just so you have another choice.
Yeah, we can
And
do,
we can
like,
look at
to Donna's
if
point,
there's
you want
anything.
us to see a chart with the 7
Yeah,
mills?
yeah,
or
but-
I mean, what would you like to see? We can get it to you, so.
You need all the variables in there, though. I mean, I'm a little uncomfortable if we go below 5% on our ending balance. So, you know, for me, it's easier to justify if I can see what we have to give up to get to that point. And also with the thought of, okay, if we're just pushing stuff forward, I mean, how much more are we going to have to pay in the future? And can we hang on long enough till our valuation takes care of that increase? And I think that answer is probably no. You know, I mean, in any business structure, you know, if you don't have enough capital, you're eventually going to hurt your revenue stream. So we got to be careful of that.
It's a balancing act, very much.
It really is, and it's not easy, because entering into that are things that might affect your ability to continue doing good economic development too. So you know, you guys do a tremendous job of balancing all those variables, and I think it's important for us to give you the resources to continue to do that great job. So. It's going to be important to me to see, okay, if we decide not to do the 12th, then we need to have a feel for how it's going to affect the way we do things in the future too, and the ability that you have of continuing the great job that you're doing.
And just one reminder, I know you probably get sick of me hearing me say this, but I've been in the community almost 6 years now, and everything I've heard over time from residents, whether it was a community survey or just anecdotal conversations on the street, was we always appreciate smaller increases over time so that the big hit doesn't come all at once. You know, and so I think that's to your point, both of you. I think it's what you're all saying is, like, let's be strategic about this so that if we do have to do an increase next year or the year after, it also could be much smaller and more, you know, a smaller bite to take. So I think it's all of those things as a policy governing body, you guys have to make those calls. And like I said, we will play whatever hand you deal us, but we want to give you the best information possible to make the best choice.
Yeah, the one other part of the conversation we haven't had too is the outside funding sources that have been asked. And the health ministries and senior center and those other entities that are asking.
Yeah.
I don't know, I have not myself have not walked over and confirmed, but I am pretty sure it's right that Tara is no longer at the senior center.
Correct.
She's gone now.
Yeah, and so I don't know if that changes anything. So those are still part of the conversation that we haven't had yet. All we did was receive a presentation from them, but we haven't decided on what our funding would be. Donna, you sent some stuff out to us, but we haven't decided how much of that we wanted
Right, we have-
to meet, so.
We've done the last few years, 20,000 to this Grand Central and 42 Health Ministries. And I did just send you the application from Health Ministries. We didn't have them come talk to you this year because we
Correct.
had so much else going on
Yeah.
with this stuff. But
I mean, the return on that investment
Return on the
is
Oh, yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's
insanely
right,
huge.
yeah.
They are a great model. I really,
Of
And we-
leveraging dollars.
And that's our external agencies, because we kind of moved the chamber over to always paying them $30,000.
Yeah, they're just more on a contract now, but it's,
and then the Humane Society.
yeah, and Carrie Hands is on
Carrie
contract with
Hands.
us, just like the EDC is on contract with us, yeah.
Okay.
Really, the only kind of discretionary funding left I say
two.
discretionary, that's just not already on a contract you all have approved, is Health Ministries and
Grand Central.
Grand Central.
For $60,000 total. That's kind of what you have to play with now. It's kind of went down from 90 and, you know,
Yeah.
that's all we have room to give. But we haven't had anybody else ask.
And we,
So,
we, 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 we
Does the county give Grand Central money?
Yes,
They do. I
they do.
couldn't remember.
You know
They
what-
actually have a dedicated mill levy that they levy for all the senior centers, and they get a portion of it.
Oh,
And I think it ends up being, I think it's $25,000 or $30,000. I'm guessing it might be a little less than that off the top of my head. Anthony shared that with me before, and I can't recall. But they
I
did
think-
also, the county did also award some of their ARPA funding to repave that parking lot over at the senior center. I think they awarded some of their ARPA funding to all of the senior centers, around.
But that is an answer I will need as well, if you change.
So I guess my thought on that is similar in, I just don't think that it's sustainable to get below the 5% ending balance. Part of me was ready to say not to exceed the 12, but then somehow can we get down to 7 or 8? And how do we get that? And I agree, what do we give up? If we get down to 7, keep the 5% ending balance, how can we make that work? And still be here to support the growth that is obviously on the drawing board. And
It's past the drawing board.
there's a lot of, I know, there's a lot of demand here. And we can't just put our head in the sand and say, oh, nope, we haven't raised the mill levy in 5 years, and we're not going to do more than a couple now, and that's just the way, we can't do that.
It's not sustainable.
That is,
no.
that is just not prudent.
Well, my concern too on the ending fund balance is not just because of the bond rating, but I think of major catastrophe.
Right, that's.
We should never dismiss that and never think that that's not a possibility. I'm just glad we haven't had that at this point.
We've been very lucky.
I mean, we should be prepared in that instance. That's just good frugal planning for something that may not ever occur, but we would be prepared.
Absolutely.
I mean, we talked about that in years past when we were running around 10, 11, 12, and then 15. I mean, I know when I was elected in 2015, I think we were at about a 15% ending fund balance. We stayed pretty close around there, but,
There had been several years in a row where deficit spending was going on, and we were
Yeah.
pulling,
Yes.
I say
Yes.
us, I wasn't here at the time, but, we were,
Yes.
we were
Yes.
living off our savings account for several
Yes.
years in a row.
mhm.
Again, this stuff ebbs and flows, it cycles, so it's,
And we can also, I can make the play, not to play the story, to the S&P that, we have to have a conscious effort that we're going to pay for some of these growing pains out of that reserve, and we're going to not go below this amount, and then it's going to go back up in
Yeah.
a year or two. I mean, I just can't do it for a consistent amount of time. But if we have a good plan, they're not going to, I don't think, shoot us out of the gate, but we do have to have a plan to get back up there.
Well, I don't like the sound of 12 mills, but I also understand that based on our history up to now, it's probably inevitable. And again, for the reason just to be prepared. But I also think about that and then in light of what may come for 2024. Because it doesn't sound like good planning when you do a 12 mil and then you go for another 2 or 3 years. When we ask for 5-year plans, we should be planning along incrementally. So I would anticipate we might even be looking at something small in 2024 to get us back up to that 15.
that might be what it would take, is do something this year and then something next year, and then get that reserve balance back in check.
And then if you change that ordinance, which we can change that ordinance, but that doesn't look very good to, bond count, I mean, as far as the rating. What, we're trying to make it easy on ourselves, and that doesn't look good. We should want to strive to keep it where it's at.
What's your pleasure? Would you like to take a break and come back, or do you want to, is this a lot? Your brains are kind
I
of
think we're
overloaded.
close to done, aren't
I
we?
think I'm okay if we wait, maybe if we schedule something on Tuesday and we can
Okay.
decide collectively beforehand if we need to meet, but,
I can fill in the blank really fast.
yeah.
Well, do this, take the 12 mills and then layer what you would
Get
defer
rid of to go to 7 or something, or 8?
down to 7 and
Okay.
show the millage on each thing that we're giving up.
Okay, I can do that.
That'll take a little bit of work, but but
What do you mean giving up? I mean,
what's that?
what do you mean giving up? Because really, the budget hasn't changed. It's the
Yeah.
amount of reserves that changes between staying flat, going
To
to
get-
five
Get it
mil,
at
going to
$5 and the 12 meals
Yeah,
to
you
stay
gotta
there.
give
to
something
get
up.
Go-
You're
5%
talking about the project.
reserve
Get to the
and,
5%.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we
gotta
do a
have a-
12,
all right.
if
have
we
a
do a
base.
12 mil increase, we will also be spending our reserves down to 5% or less.
So if you go down from the
That make
mills,
sense?
then you have to somehow keep that reserve. Something's got to come up. Because that's a long ways to go down.
Get your pencils.
Mine's already to the nib.
Yeah. You use one of them old lead pencils.
I used to.
Yeah, you and me both. Never ran out of lead.
Okay, well, why don't you guys think on it? If you think of other questions you have or information you'd like, shoot any of us an email. We'll gladly get it to you.
we can send
And let's
it.
plan, you want to do 5 o'clock or 5:30 on
Yeah.
Tuesday?
And this is hard work for you guys, so don't think we don't appreciate it.
Sure, oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
What time does everybody want, 5 or 5:30 Tuesday?
Either way.
5 or 5:30 is fine.
I'm always a
Fine.
fan of a little bit earlier if we can do it, just to make sure we have enough time.
Sure. I mean, if you want to do 5, we can do 5. As long as you guys can get from work to here by then, it's whatever.
I think I can.
I should be able to make it.
Yeah, I'm good with 5, whatever works for everybody else.
Commissioner Kane, is 5 okay for you?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, so let's just plan for 5
Rod,
o'clock
is
then?
that good with you, or are you gonna?
Yeah,
are you-
that works.
Okay,
I don't leave till the next morning.
okay.
Okay, so
All right.
5?
5 o'clock on Tuesday?
We'll see you then.
Okay, good deal.
All right. Thank you all, we appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Thank you very much.